accidente, etc.
Thrill me.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Horror Flicks and Guitar Picks podcast. I'm your host, Tim, and today I'm joined once again by my co-host, Steven, to talk about all things body horror. How's it going, man? How's things been?
It's been good, dude. Yeah, it's just kind of like creeping into summer season and stuff like that. So it's getting hot here in North Kakalaka, and yeah, it's been good. This week's kind of a blur. Just work's been busy. I was in Raleigh last weekend, hanging out with my buddy Lance, who I do Toxic Coffin with, as you know, and our good friend Phil. We got to go see Fabio Frizzi, who did all the like score for like Zombie and The Beyond and shit like that. But yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, that show was killer. I mean, Lance and I have been fortunate enough to see Goblin,
Yeah.
score Suspiria. We saw that twice. We saw Deep Red. I missed out on the Demons show, which I really wanted to go see. But so when I saw that they were doing Zombie, I was like, oh hell yeah. Like I love Goblin, but I love all the other Italian horror score people too. And I didn't realize he did Fabio Frizzi did Kill Bill. I
Oh,
didn't know
shit.
that.
No,
Yeah,
me neither.
yeah, that was awesome to see that. But it was cool. I mean, it was kind of the same thing. I will say, and this isn't really a dig on the venue, but place we saw it at, I guess they were trying to get like more people like to be able to sell more tickets. They decided that it wasn't going to be like a sit down event, which
Yeah.
like you know how these are. It's you're watching the movie while they do a live score. So I was just like, okay, I can stand my 37-year-old old body post hip surgery can get through this.
They
So.
expected you to dance during the shark versus zombie scene. They were like, these motherfuckers are gonna get groovy.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah, people were like in the like that scene and like the eyeball scene, like people were just like losing their minds, like, yeah, this is the best, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was funny. But yeah, it was a great time. And then yeah, went and saw Sinners that weekend. I've never been to an IMAX theater. Well, other than going like to like the aquarium as a kid and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that was my first time experiencing like a modern movie in IMAX, and that was sick. And
Oh,
with
yeah.
that movie being so like music driven, it just made it so much cooler. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I know that's one that you need to still check out. But definitely hopefully you can see it soon.
Oh yeah. No, I haven't had much time to watch movies lately. And when I did, like over the past like 2 or 3 days, I pretty much just binged through
Mhm.
a few body horror movies that I hadn't seen in a while and stuff. Nothing too new. Well, nothing too new, like nothing new to me. You know what I mean? Like nothing I hadn't seen before, really. Um, but no, I went and saw. I went out to Kentucky for LDB myself. And our plan was to go see Sinners our first night there, but we had a car breakdown in West Virginia and had to spend like pretty much 10 hours in West Virginia with no car. So. Uh,
Dude, I saw that unfolding, I think while I was maybe driving to Raleigh or something like that. And I was like, oh shoot, I felt so bad for you guys. But sounds like it was like something that was like the Ford or whatever. It was like a recall or something that happened. So they're like trying to fix it for y'all or whatever.
Yeah, we hadn't even paid the first payment on the car, and when we got the car, they said that there was a recall for it, and
Damn.
they were like, "We don't have a fix for it yet." However, when we showed up there, they immediately knew what the problem was and how to fix it. So I don't know how true that was. So we might have some conversations with some dealerships here soon,
Sure.
but no, overall, luckily we don't have to pay for it to get fixed. But our car is trapped in West Virginia, about like 7 hours away. So uh, also another conversation we might have to have with some dealerships about them transporting it to us, because right now my
Mhm.
wife's planning to go get it. But I'm like, this is kind of y'all's fault. So
Yeah,
I don't know if we
seriously.
should really have to go to fucking West Virginia, but that's a whole nother thing. We had a blast at LDB once we got there.
Good,
Um,
good.
we got to see a bunch of cool bands. We got to see Haywire. They fucking killed it. And now they're going on like a what? I think it was like a 6 or 70. I think it's 82 days. They're going on like a tour that's like fucking like 3 months straight almost.
God damn.
And it's already started. So I'm gonna catch them again when they come to Chesapeake for sure. Finally got to see Basement. I've
Mhm.
loved them since high school. Never seen them live, so that was awesome. Finally got to see Cold World. Same thing. Loved them for a long time. Got to see Peeling Flesh. It was awesome.
Nice.
Trying to think if there was any like sleeper bands. Year of the Knife was great. It was good to see them back on, playing shows again and stuff. Which Brandon Watkins actually from Year of the Knife is next week's
Hmm.
guest. So if you're
Nice.
listening and you like Year of the Knife, he'll be on next week.
Heck yeah.
There's some other cool bands. I was a little bit bummed that High Vis dropped. They were one of the big bands we were stoked to see. But other than that,
Oh, damn. Yeah,
one,
I'd love to see them too.
yeah, especially because they come from the UK, so it's just so hard to
Mhm.
catch them over here. Kind of like Slope, what I talked about in like the music episode or whatever. But no, it was cool to see Spy. Spy is one of my favorites of like the like like mid-level hardcore bands as far as popularity, not mid-level in their
Sure.
like quality. As far as I'm concerned, they're high quality. But no, one of those tours that it was like, or it's one of those festivals. So there was like 30 bands between both days. So I could just sit here and keep naming bands that were awesome. But Big Ass
Sure.
Truck was fun as fuck. They were the first band we saw when we got there on Friday. So they
How
were
many
awesome.
car horns do they have in their set?
Not as much as you would think, but
Really?
uh, it's one of those things that like the set was kind of like wild and stuff. Like it was pretty crazy. And then, but when they play the song Big Ass Truck, where everybody has to yell Big Ass Truck,
And last but not fucking least, big ass truck.
it went, no pun intended, 80 miles an hour. So no,
Hell yeah.
but no, I had a blast. Like I ended up drunk and moshing on Saturday, and I never moshed, so that was fun. It was Mind
You
Force was another band that I like really
nice.
enjoyed. So
Came out of Mosh retirement.
yeah, not from I didn't do much, but during Peeling Flesh and
Sure.
Mind Force I did. I mostly just hung out up front and then like moshed every like great now and then, like maybe like once or twice each band. But it was one of those
Mhm.
that I was like, by that time it was like late Saturday. We'd been there both days. The music had finally gotten to me. I was like, I got to get up
Mhm.
there. So no, it was a blast. But
Nice.
other than that, I haven't really been watching anything else except for catching up on like I said, I watched some body horror movies, but
Sure.
been catching up on somewhat. I guess it can kind of be considered body horror. The Last of Us season two, it's
Oh yeah.
been pretty good, and I guess with like the spores and stuff, it can relate.
Mhm.
But before we move right into the body horror stuff, though, I know you mentioned seeing centers and hanging out with Phil from Spook House, but you guys also did an episode with him as well, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, yeah, we were hanging out and yeah, we were just kind of like shooting the shit and Phil was like, "Hey, while we're here," he's like wanting to record a reactionary video to it. So he's like, "You guys up for it?" And we're like, "Yeah, I mean, uh, we get to hang out, sit on the couch and gab about horror movies. Like, sure, we're
Well,
gonna do that anyways. We might as well do it, on a camera." So, so yeah, so it was fun. And yeah, so always good chats, and I always love hearing like, especially like doing the stuff with Lance because he has always such a interesting perspective on a lot of the things, and he loves lore so much too. So he'll bring in lore and spirituality and mysticism and stuff like that to the conversation in a way that I wouldn't do, because he's got a good knowledge on a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's
yeah.
always really interesting. But yeah,
No, hell yeah. No, no. Of course, I'll put the link to that episode in the description of this episode, so that way, if you want to hear Steven and them talk about Sinners, of course, because like I said, I haven't seen it yet, so we're not really able to even give too much of our thoughts on it. Of course, I know you liked it, but
yeah,
like we don't want to dive into it until I have seen it, which I'm going to do. I'm so bummed that I planned because I was like gonna go see it the weekend before, and then once
sure,
Lauren said that she was actually interested in seeing it, I was like, oh, well, I'll wait until we get to Kentucky. We'll check out one of their movies because I like checking out movie theaters in other
mhm,
towns. I try not
yeah,
to go to what's the word, franchises when I'm there. Like I try not to
sure,
go to
sure,
like
sure.
AMC. I try to go to something that's like a different name. I'll go to Alamo Draft House anywhere because they're fucking awesome. But
It's the
uh,
best.
yeah, and so like I'll go there, but unless there's one there, but there wasn't one in Kentucky. So when that all fell apart, I was like, fuck. So I'm bummed that I pushed back. I wish I just went and saw it because now there's even more movies piling up because we got
Hmm.
Final Destination coming up, we got Friendship coming up, and Bring Her Back, which hopefully we can knock out the Friendship and Bring Her Back double feature in June. So keep your ears
Hell
peeled
yeah.
for that. But
Yeah, and I think I just saw that Sinners is coming back to IMAX for like mid-May.
yeah,
So you might be able to go check it out at the Virginia Beach IMAX if you're looking to see it that way.
yeah,
It's coming back. So it's cool to see that it's been so successful. I think the last I saw was like uh it was made for like 90 million and then it's already grossed like 200 million in the box. So um so
I was gonna
Sweet.
go. I was gonna go see it last night because that's when I ended up watching a bunch of body horror
Mm,
movies. And
sure.
I looked Friday night because like I knew that my wife's plan was to go out and have like a mom date with a bunch. Well, she didn't have a mom date like they all brought the kids and stuff, but you know what I mean. They had like
Sure, sure,
a big
sure.
like play date, I guess would be the word I'm looking for. But they had plans to have a big play date in the afternoon, so I was gonna go see Sinners. I looked up tickets at Cinema Cafe because I didn't want to drive to Lynn Haven because
Hmm.
I canceled my AMC stubs. It's good, but like it's been like
Sure.
it's been like two stale months for horror. You know, like there's a couple things I want to see except for, you know, like I wouldn't mind seeing Until Dawn, but I don't want to drive an hour and 20 minutes to do it.
Yeah, I
So
feel you.
I was gonna go to Cinema Cafe to see it, even though I fucking hate Cinema Cafe. And if you're listening to Cinema Cafe, go fuck yourself. But I was gonna go just because I didn't want to drive that far, and literally almost every showing was practically sold out. Like there was like no good seats, and like, and this has been out like a month now, so I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
damn,
been a
dude,
while.
I'm glad to see it still pumping, but I was like,
Yeah.
fuck, I wanted to see it. So no, but today's topic is body horror. This was a choice of yours, Steven.
Hmm.
For anybody wondering, we're each month we're both gonna choose a topic. This month, Steven's choice was body horror. My topic choice, which is coming up in 2 weeks, is horror movies that were snubbed by the Oscars. So, but what was like, what made you pick body horror? And do you remember your first introduction into body horror? Or like the first, I'm like you and me, I'm sure had the same thing where we watched movies that maybe had body horror in it and just
Sure.
never realized it. But you know, the first time you watched one and you were like, you knew like, oh, this is something different. You know, like this is like it made you discover the
Oh
subgenre
yeah, yeah,
almost.
yeah. Absolutely. I guess I chose it because I just love goo so much. I love all the goo. No, actually,
Yeah.
I hate getting messy. I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm a clean freak. I just don't like getting like gross. Even as a kid, like loving Halloween, I hated having to pick out all the gunk in pumpkins.
Yeah.
It just like would freak me out. Like I never liked playing with I was 90s kid, so like Nickelodeon, like remember Gak?
Yeah.
Like everybody had Gak and absolutely hated it, hated the smell of it, just didn't like slime and all that shit. And like now my kids, like my daughter are like, I want to make slime. I'm like, absolutely not. I hate it. I hate it so much. I don't know why.
My version of
So
that, sorry to cut you off. I was gonna say
yeah, you're good.
I like refuse to put syrup on things because I do not want to deal with the stickiness of syrup. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like I don't want it on my fingers. As soon as you touch it once, you're sticky for the rest of the day, is how I feel.
yeah,
Even if you
I
wash your hands.
and
And
I like wings, but I hate like my
yeah.
hands getting all grossed out and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I think because of that, like body horror is like one of the few genres that still like can really like, oh, I hate what's happening right now. So it gives me like a more visceral reaction compared to like, I see a slasher and I'm just like, oh hell yeah, he's
Yeah.
ripped open, but like doesn't phase me at all. But body horror just finds an extra little way to like get under your skin, which is cool. But then also, I just thought it'd be a fitting topic because, I've gone through my own little body horror. I had hip surgery at the end of January, so I just thought, like, oh yeah, I've been having to like deal with like that recovery and like figuring out what the hell's all wrong with my busted ass hips, besides just being old. So yeah, I just thought it'd be like a fun little parallel to let's talk about, let's explore each other's bodies, if we will.
Live on YouTube for those.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so I guess your other question as far as what like maybe what was the first introduction to body horror for me? Probably the earliest I can remember would be The Fly, Cronenberg's The Fly specifically. I just remember, I remember it always coming on like TNT or like one of those channels like all the time when I was a kid. And uh, when I was little, I had this crush on Gina Davis from watching the movie A League of Their Own.
Oh yeah.
Like I was like, oh, that lady's pretty,
Yeah.
It wasn't even from like Beetlejuice or anything, but yeah, specifically A League of Their Own. And so I remember being like, I like this actress a lot, and always seeing her in this film, and I also always thought that Jeff Goldblum was just like a weird looking dude, and I was like, I don't understand who this guy is. He talks funny, and then just watching that movie and I remember being like freaked out, and it's for TV, so like they probably didn't show like the most graphic parts of like all the transformations and stuff, but I just remember I remember I'd at that point, I'd already seen like Nightmare on Elm Street. Um, and I couldn't put a thumb on why this movie made me feel uncomfortable, because I don't know, The Fly isn't really like the scariest movie, but as we dig into all of this, like again, body horror just has a way of like making you feel gross. So
Yeah.
I didn't know how to understand that as a kid, and I was just like, I don't like how he transforms. I don't like how like he's like dripping like his
Oh, the
the
fingernails,
drool and
dude.
the oh fuck the fingernails. Yeah, it's so bad. That's like fingernails. Uh, Anything that happens in a horror movie with a fingernail getting ripped off or whatever, I'm just like, no, 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 please don't do that. But then I can't look away too. It's like all the freaking Dr. Pimple Popper stuff. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to see this, but also I can't not look at it. So I don't know. I just thought it'd be a fun conversation to talk about slime and nasty stuff. So
Yeah.
but yeah, what
Yeah.
about you? What do you have anything that comes to mind as far as like the first body horror film you can really remember?
I meant to look up which one came out first, but I really don't think it matters because
Sure.
at first I was torn which one it was, but then I thought about it and I was like, I think they both came out within like a year, but I know I started to remember which one I saw first. And
Hmm.
for me, it was actually a somewhat newer film, not newer if you were born in the 2000s or something, but it's a Slither. James Gunn's
Oh,
Slither was
hell
actually my
yeah.
first because like you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street. I grew up watching those movies, and there's some body horror in that, especially in two. With him like
Yeah.
coming through and all that. But that stuff didn't really like resonate for as anything other than a slasher. You know what I mean? That's what I thought of those
Sure.
films as. And so once I finally got older and saw a film like Slither, I was like, watching these people become grotesque and like still, but somewhat of their consciousness still being in there. So it wasn't like zombie films where these people become grotesque, but they're just not their selves anymore. They're still like their human consciousness. So that's what made me kind of be like, this is unique. And the other film I was gonna say was Splinter.
Mm.
I actually saw that very early, and it was literally just because and it was the same way I saw Slither. Me and my buddies used to sit around and after band practice. I think this was before I even like did like before I was even in the band. It was like I was just hanging out with, my
Sure.
friends that were in a band and stuff, and I'd hang out while they practiced, and then we'd all go out, grab some food. McDonald's at the time, it grew into Cookout once we finally got a Cookout here in Elizabeth City. And then, but we'd always Redbox something or go $5 Bennett at Walmart and then go back and watch a movie. And it was always, horror, but we were trying to find like goofy, shitty horror, not really like
Sure.
what was the best thing. And one night we picked up Slither and one night we happened to pick up Splinter. I think Splinter was on the $5 bin. I still have like the DVD down and at the bottom
Hmm.
of my shelf somewhere, but because I was one of the ones that always bought them. So it was like it was either me or my buddy Richard at the time. And
Nice.
so we ended up watching those and both movies were a blast, but for different reasons. One actually had a bunch of humor in it, which was super fun. And the one just felt so unique to anything we'd seen. It's kind of like a body horror film that's also a creature feature, Splinter is. Which
Yeah.
Slither also, I guess, could be called a body horror creature feature, but that's what makes body horror so interesting to me is the fact that there's always like some other subgenre attached in a way, and if there's not, like, and the few films that come out being like straight body horror without the subgenre, it makes those ones even more interesting because it's like, damn, they really like uh told a story and like there it's almost like they didn't need the horror but they used the body horror to just like drive the story home, you know what I mean? Like for instance like Starry Eyes, you know what I mean? I wouldn't call that
Sure.
anything other than a body horror film. Like I wouldn't call that, like you can it's not really sci-fi. I mean, I guess cult. I guess it could be a cult film, which I want to say light spoilers going forward. We won't try to spoil the end of any films, but we'll definitely be
Sure.
spoiling some like parts and stuff like that. So
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Kind of like while I was like preparing for this, I went back and looked through, just trying to make sure I'm not forgetting to touch on one film or the other. And I mean, if you look up a list of like the best body horror films or whatever, it's such a wide spectrum.
yeah.
So I'd be curious, like what classifies, body horror to you? Like, is there a specific definition? Is there a point where body horror, you know, actually really just becomes a creature film or a monster movie or sci-fi? Or, like, do you draw the line anywhere, or do you just kind of, you know, body horror can be about a bunch of things. It's just, some films are specifically solely focused on the body horror versus, this has some body horror within it. I'd be curious where that line maybe draws for you.
For me, pretty much like if I had to give like a dumbed down definition of what I think body horror is, it's to me it's any film that one of the main characters is dealing with a change or losing control of their body to the
Hmm.
point where uh it like it is something that is horrifying. You know what I mean? Like it's different when it's somebody going to get plastic surgery and then it just works out. Like American Mary, I wouldn't
Sure,
call.
sure.
Well, I guess you could call that body. I wouldn't call that body horror. That's just more like, I mean, some of the stuff that she does is rough to see, but I just wouldn't call that body horror. You know what I mean? But something like, I'm trying to think of like a definite, like something that's good. Oh, Upgrade. Like Upgrade is
Okay.
technically a sci-fi movie, but I could see people calling like a sci-fi horror movie, but or even more action. But I could see where
Yeah.
people could call that body horror because the thought of like somebody else completely taking control of your body like that, but your mental state watching and seeing and feeling everything that happens is fucking kind of scary as hell. So, it's a wide like I'm with you. It is a very wide spectrum, and there's some things that um like when it comes to body horror, I feel like for instance, we were talking about Rabid, like that's kind
Hmm.
of very loosely body horror, because the body horror
Sure.
comes from her changing and becoming like this kind of like vampiric thing with her like armpit
Yep.
stinger, and but it's more of like a zombie film, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't call
Yeah.
that a body horror film first, so
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I started like going down that rabbit hole, and I was like, I mean, technically a werewolf film is body horror. I mean, you got transformations. It's your body is going through a physical alteration, and it's horrific. And but I don't think anybody would take, The Howling or American Werewolf and call that a body horror film. It's just a werewolf film.
yeah,
So it's kind of interesting. I guess maybe like what really like constitutes a movie being specifically called a body horror film would be, if the point of the movie is dealing with, that that evolution of your physical form and how that affects you.
yeah,
So maybe that, I guess technically a werewolf, but you're becoming another creature at that point that's established. So, I guess it's hard to like really put just a black and white definition on what makes body horror specific. So,
yeah.
um,
And some of
yeah.
those werewolf films hold tropes that feel very body horror-ish, like Ginger Snaps, or even kind of an
Yeah.
American Werewolf in London, where it's like a slow change where they're dealing with
Mhm.
this one night, and more so, obviously Ginger Snaps because she's like slowly gets the tail, then she, where American Werewolf it's just like nights where he like experiences stuff. But it's one of those things that because it's like a
Mhm.
slow progression, it almost does have like that same body horror like aspect of like movies we've mentioned like Starry Eyes or Slither,
Sure.
where like by the end of like from beginning to end they slowly get worse and worse and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get technical, like, I guess you could say like Frankenstein is body horror,
yeah,
it's like, so yeah, it's just interesting. I think the other thing, d- I'd be curious what draws you to body horror. But I think there's a interesting fascination, obviously like we love practical effects and seeing like that kind of stuff, but I think because it's happening to somebody's DNA or whatever, like we all have our own personal you know, feelings about our own bodies and being self-conscious about this or that, whether it's, like I don't like my smile or, whatever.
yeah,
Uh, and that's what makes body horror scary because it is like your worst fear coming true. Like one day you're like, yeah, I'm fine. And like, oh my gosh, like this rash is getting infected and now it's like growing something and so whether it's like I don't know, it's just that fear of just like what if I became absolutely disgusting, my worst nightmare. So yeah, it's I think easy to relate to like the feelings of the victim or individual that's dealing with the horrible experience. So, but
Yeah. Now, I know what you mean. It's almost like there's a subgenre of the subgenre that I like to
mhm.
call the fuck around and find out films. It's
Sure.
like The Substance or From Beyond, you know what I mean? Like you keep fucking with something that you shouldn't, and eventually like it changes things, but the way that it changes, it happens to be like your body uh instead of like a film like Event Horizon where it opens up a dimension to hell. It's like
Sure.
what you're fucking with like eventually like latches onto you and changes you personally and stuff. Because like Jeffrey Combs by the end of From Beyond is like a almost like a mutant himself, with a thing coming out of
Yeah.
his head and all this shit. So, and that's the thing is, there's also films though where they feel like body horror, but the main character doesn't deal with any actual body horror, like
Mhm.
Society. Like
Yeah.
I'd call Society body horror in a heartbeat, but literally the main character never goes through any transformations. So that's another thing
Sure.
that opens up like a wormhole to what does body horror mean in this and that. So
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, even yeah, I was thinking like Reanimator is kind of a similar way where you're watching all the other people go through the transformations and like some people might call Reanimator, just a kind of a zombie film, if you will, because they're reanimating people, but then other people are like, nah, this is Lovecraftian, which it is. And
yeah.
so yeah, there's so many doors that open into what body horror is as far as like the effect and but yeah,
Especially
so
Bride of Reanimator, where they're making all like the fingers with
mhm.
the eyeball and shit like that. Like they like really go far with their experiments in that one.
Oh yeah, 100%. So yeah, I guess moving into that, we're starting to touch base on movies. I know you were posting and we were kind of talking about this, like you rewatched Shivers, or you watched Shivers for the first time, right?
I
Last night?
tried. I
You
tried.
tried? Did you not like it?
Uh,
Or are
so
you tired?
I watched Rabid, and Rabid's okay. Like I don't. I'll be honest.
Uh,
I don't love Rabid. I feel like Cronenberg,
sure.
um, like his best early film, like as far as like 70s goes to me is The Brood. And then
Okay.
which I, of course, like I said, I haven't really seen Shiver, so I can't say, but but I really like Videodrome and like The Fly and like his 80s
Mm,
stuff is like where I feel like he really hit. But and like Scanners, of course. But so
sure.
I tried to watch Shivers right after watching Rabid, and I just could not do another 70s movie with a bunch of random shit. I was like, I could not do this again. Because, like, just like Rabid, like it'll just
Mm,
move from one scene to another. Like, Shivers starts
yeah.
with them, like, pretty much, it's like promoting, it starts with like a promotional thing for like the apartment complex. And then it immediately moves
Yeah.
into like a couple as they try to like walk up to the thing and like move in. And at the same time, it's showing like this girl get like I don't know, molested me. I couldn't tell what was happening. I was hoping it wasn't going to turn into
Yeah,
the
that's a
R
tough
word, but
scene. It's
I was just like, I can't do this right now. I'm good.
yeah, I think I mean I almost think most people would, you know, consider that a rape scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird because it's not sexual, but
He's
it
like grabbing her
feels,
shoulders and choking
it
her the whole time.
feels
Yeah.
so evasive that way. But also like Cronenberg's movies have so much of that element of like whether it's sexual tension or um you know the underlying themes of all that kind of stuff, whether it's I feel like there's a lot of like commentary about like venereal diseases and stuff like that in his movies.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk Cronenberg for a little bit because I feel like when you think of body horror, like, he is the king of body horror. It's who most people reference, when you talk about the genre. Um, so yeah, I feel like I'm sort of the opposite of you. I like Rabid and Shivers more than Videodrome and The Fly for whatever reason. Um, I saw The Fly was the first film of his that I ever saw,
Yeah.
and I saw Videodrome much later. And they're great. I love them. Love both of those films. But I have like a soft spot for like his 70s, like Shivers, like something about it. Like I love the promo in the beginning that you're describing.
Yeah.
Like I'm obsessed with like anything that's like 60s, 70s, like I love mid-century stuff. And there's something about his films, like all of the set design and everything, that I'm like, oh, this is like a crazy like atomic era apartment, like the whole concept of like it's like its own island, and
Yeah.
it's like its own community to come live in this apartment and like almost there's almost like a pretentiousness of like we're a better society on this island because we've got this and that. Like so, I think there's like some interesting social commentary as far as like the upper class, like oh, come live in luxury and this and that, and these people are like weird, mutated, sex crazy monsters. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. But and then same thing with Rabid. I don't know. I just the tone of those movies are a lot different than The Fly and Videodrome, where Videodrome and Fly is much darker. It has that 80s like gloss to it,
Yeah.
All of the effects are more rubbery and slimy and shiny, which is super rad. But definitely tonally is a little different. So, but
Now I'm gonna watch
yeah. What
Shivers
what would you
eventually.
say?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead. You said you're gonna finish watching Shivers eventually.
Yeah, I wanted to watch Shivers, and it wasn't that I wasn't liking it. It's just for some reason at that time, like sometimes you got to be in a certain mood for shit. I was like,
Oh,
if I keep
100%.
watching this, it's a forced watch. I was like, it's gonna be forced
Sure.
because I liked Rabbit, and I'd watch it again, but like
Hmm.
I'm not like again tonight, but like if they were showing it at a movie theater, I would love to see it in like the movie theater with like a crowd of people that enjoy
Sure.
that stuff too. But it's just not like I guess just after seeing all the other Cronenberg and rewatching that stuff so much and liking it so much. I've seen Rabbit before. But this was probably my second time watching it. That's why I wanted to fit Rabbit in again.
Yeah.
Um, so when I watched Rabbit, I really, like I said, I enjoyed it, but it was just because it's like of the tone and mood of it to go right into another, because I had other movies lined up that I wanted to watch anyways. I ended up taking a nap instead and then watching one this morning, which we'll get to that one later.
Sure.
When we talk about more like recent stuff, but um, which actually it kind of does fit though, because what I watched this morning was Cuckoo, and
Oh
Cuckoo
yeah.
kind of feels very inspired by something like Shivers, or The Brood, where it's like these retreats where these things
Hmm.
are happening, and somebody and it's like it doesn't always make sense, like like it makes sense when you really dive into it, but like this was my second time watching Cuckoo as well, and it really felt like that movie deserved a second watch to really like understand everything, and I feel like that's the same thing you get from Cronenberg's films. Like when you're
Definitely.
watching them the first time, like you pick up all these, like you just watch a movie, you enjoy it, and you get the message at the end. But then when you get to watch it again, you see where the message was in the whole movie. You know what I mean? Like this thing happened here, or like this thing happened here, and you're like, oh, oh, that was just a quick little like sentence from somebody, or like a quick little thing, and it ends up making way more like has way more importance to the like finale of the film. So uh,
Sure.
no, that's one thing I can say is, but I do want to watch Shivers eventually, just because it just wasn't like I just didn't want to do a back-to-back double feature of 70s like style flicks like that. I was like,
Yeah.
because I love the 70s, but there's different styles in the 70s. Like if I was throwing on Texas Chainsaw after Rabbit, I would have been good to go because it's like something that's more ramped up and just kind of
Sure.
straightforward.
Sure.
But I just wasn't in the mood for something like that was very much like, because even with Rabbit, it like jump like his early movies feel like Italian movies to me, where they jump around, but
Yeah.
they're still cohesive and make sense, but they do jump around a lot. And that just wasn't I wasn't in the mood to follow that. I was like,
Sure. 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 Yeah. I mean, it's and also like those earlier films feel a lot colder
yeah,
too. You know what I mean? Like just how, I mean, I know he's Canadian, so
yeah. There's like
but
nobody to grab onto in those movies at all. Like,
sure. Or even Scanners. Like I remember the first time I ever saw that, and like everybody loves the head explosion scene, but yeah, it's kind of a fun like espionage, like spy kind of film, but at the same time there's some like really like slower parts of it that just feels a little more dense and not as, like you said, it's not ramped up in a way.
yeah,
Um, but I don't know, there's something like Shivers in particular. And you did touch on like it kind of feels like an Italian film almost. To me it has that extra level of like almost like exploitation film.
yeah,
Um, that it feels gross and it makes me like uncomfortable, but at the same time like I'm so drawn to it. Um, and not to like dive into it too hard because I know you want to watch it fully and I don't want to spoil too much, but like I feel like Cronenberg has always done such a good job. I mean, especially like Videodrome. I mean, like
Yeah.
the way like anybody he can have a character just like sitting and like touching their stomach, like, and you're just like, ugh,
Yeah.
I don't want to be
Something's
a
gonna go
part of
wrong.
this right now.
Yeah.
Like, why does he have a lumpy stomach? And but at the same time, he's like sweating, and I was like, kind of likes this, and like, especially Videodrome. I mean, you have the classic, tape scene where he gets shoved into his abdominal cavity that, looks like a vag. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. Do you have a favorite Cronenberg film by any chance?
Honestly, it's probably Videodrome. I really like
Yeah,
Videodrome. Of course, James Woods sucks now, but
sure,
which there's a lot of actors that do suck now or suck and we don't know about it because
sure,
it's all
sure,
behind closed doors. But anyways, that's another thing. But Videodrome to me just it's one of those movies that the way that it almost predicted so much, you know what I mean? Like from the way that they like talk about just technology taking over in general,
sure.
and they almost like predict cell phones and the way that like smut TV is obviously going to take over, take precedence over, just like normal everyday television and stuff. But no, I really enjoy Videodrome. I think The Fly would be a second. A very,
Hmm.
very close second. Those are both films I didn't see till my 20s because, like I mentioned on the very first episode, I didn't get into diving back into horror until I was in like my
Sure.
20s and stuff. So I mean, and now I'm 33, so I mean, I've spent a decade with those films and I've rewatched them both quite a bit. But those are probably my two most rewatched. I even got to see The Fly at the Carolina Theater in Durham, which was super
Oh,
awesome.
nice.
So
Yeah.
I got to see that on the big screen, which was fun. And then but I do really, really, really enjoy The Brood. I know that one's kind of
Hmm.
like one of a lot of people's like uh ones they mentioned of him like kicking off his career or whatever, but
Sure.
that's the one that I don't know, something about it. I think it's the like the brutalness of that, which I mean, there's some of that brutality in like the films like which I haven't gotten to like I probably should have watched a little bit more Shivers and it might have pulled me in eventually, but it was just
Yeah.
between like I said that scene where the guy was like kind of beating on the girl and it was just I was like it was rough, but so
Yeah.
it just wasn't in the mood at the time. But like and there's some brutality in Rabbit, of course, with the way they're
Hmm.
just biting people and shit, but like that scene where all those little like minion things like beat that woman to death at the
Hmm.
in front of the kids. I'm like, this shit's fucking wild. Like stuff
Uh-huh.
he was doing in the Brood is just crazy. But what about you? Do you have a favorite?
Honestly, I mean, again, I really think it's Shivers. There's
Oh
there's
yeah,
just something to it. There's like a rawness to that film, and once you do finally watch it all, I'd be curious to know like really what you think. In the same way that like isn't body horror, but like the way that Argento's Tenebrae like really, really, really like stuck with me. Shivers kind of gives me a similar like feeling to that, where it's just like there's like some mean-heartedness to it, and then just without spoiling anything, like the way it like unfolds and some of the body horror aspects, like to me it was less the fly's cool, but you know what you're getting. It's a monster. It's this. Like this felt so much more subtle, but in like a scary way that I don't know, Shivers just draws me in.
oh yeah,
But yeah, and I also just love that like 70s like sweaty look that everybody has, you know. Um but yeah, I think that's probably my favorite. I mean, I went down a rabbit hole maybe like a year or two ago trying to catch some of his stuff that I hadn't ever watched. Like I'd never seen what is it, Dead Ringers? Is Dead
yeah,
Ringers the one about the twin brothers, right? Isn't that the
yeah.
one? Yeah, I finally saw that one and that was fine. I don't know. I know a lot of people love that one. I kind of got bored with it. I went down trying to just see his like non like body horror films. So I saw like History of Violence and Eastern Promises, like,
Yeah.
and those are awesome, like just action crime movies and stuff like that. But one body horror film that he did that I slept on for a long time, mostly because I feel like there's a lot of like those 90s, early 2000s films that you're like, I don't know, this just looks too weird
Yeah.
or the art for it makes it look like it's not going to be very good. But I finally saw Existence. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah. Is it called Existence or Existence?
I don't know. Again, this is I'm bad with words. I can't pronounce anything, so I will say it wrong for forever. So please, yeah, if you know what it's supposed to be called, I'm
I
probably
think
saying it wrong,
I
but
think it's Existence, but no, actually, I haven't. I've heard people mention it on like podcasts. That's why I think it's pronounced that way or whatever. But I
sure,
actually
sure,
have never seen that one. I haven't seen most of his '90s on stuff. I have seen Crimes of the Future, which I fucking loved that.
sure.
But I have not seen which I say I fucking loved. I just really liked it. But
Yeah.
I think I it was one of those movies I saw and thought about for a long time. But I haven't seen Eastern Promises or History of Violence, and I own both on DVD. I just never watched them. But I need to watch Existence or Existence, however you say it, and then I needed to watch Naked Lunch. I believe is his other one
Mm,
I haven't seen.
sure. Existence, like that one, what surprised the hell out of me. Like it's you know, I don't know. Like I don't want to give away too many spoilers. It is definitely like his one of his weirder ones as far as like all the like body modification and like gross out stuff, but it is a very cool uh you know technology driven body horror film and like talking about like virtual reality and like video games and stuff like that and like where are those lines and it's cool and it's got gosh what's her face from I'm gonna butcher this so bad. She was in Possessor. She was in uh The Hateful Eight, Tarantino. Why can't I think of her last?
Oh,
What is her name?
Jennifer Jason Lee.
Uh yes, Jennifer Jason Lee.
Yeah,
She's in that and
I
she's
think so.
awesome. And yeah, it's good. And then obviously it's Jude Law. Which isn't like not really an actor that I like think a lot about, but he's great in that movie as well. So definitely recommend checking that one out ASAP. I think it's one of those movies too I'd appreciate more as an adult. And honestly, most of Cronenberg's canon, it's not something you see as a teenager. You know,
Yeah,
maybe The Fly. The Fly is probably the most like acceptable, but like I can't imagine being in high school and going and watching Videodrome, being like, oh wow, yeah, like I get this.
right.
Those movies would just be like completely over my head.
It'd be more
Um,
like, did you see that movie with the belly pussy?
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's exactly what it would be. It'd be like, I can't, what is this? Yeah, that's when I feel like maybe those films just become purely like, yeah, but you have never seen anything like this, and then you don't really care what the movie is. It's just you're just trying to watch it for the, weird violence and stuff like that. But yeah, so I mean, I'm sure there's been plenty of talks about Cronenberg, but what's maybe some lesser discussed or known horror films, whether it's modern films or things in the past. I mean, I know you mentioned Society, like that was one that I saw later, and I feel like has gained a way bigger like cult, following. But there's so many movies like that I feel like we could kind of like talk about. So I don't know
yeah.
if you have any lesser knowns that you want to bring out.
The only thing before we move on from Cronenberg,
Sure. Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
want to mention I found out one cool fact I didn't realize until like literally watching. It was actually at the start of Shivers. That might have been why I didn't get into the beginning because I jumped on my cell phone to figure out what the fuck I just read. Because
What just happened?
it said music supervisor Ivan Reitman, which for anybody listening that doesn't know, Ivan Reitman is the director of Ghostbusters,
Oh shit. Yeah.
so many other films. I wish I could rattle them off, but I can't. But his son Jason Reitman is now a big director. He did Juno. I think he did the latest
Hmm.
Frozen Empire. You know, the latest Ghostbusters. I believe he took that over. I might be wrong on that, but either way, Ivan Reitman. Just how like it's a big thing that the Coen brothers worked with Sam Raimi early on and stuff like
Sure.
that. Apparently, Ivan Reitman and Cronenberg worked together a lot in
Hmm.
the beginning. I guess Ivan Reitman produced both Rabid and Shivers, and then he also like one of the first things they ever did together was like a stage play called Spellbound, where
Mhm.
Reitman like helped him to produce and write it, and then Cronenberg directed that. So they worked together early on. I thought that was pretty cool, just because hearing like big name directors that you wouldn't expect to work together at all. One made Ghostbusters and one made
Yeah.
fucking The Fly, so it's like oh shit. But I thought that was super cool. But as far as like films, like newer films though, or any just like more hidden gem stuff, I kind of like quickly mentioned Starry Eyes. I really like that one. both Splinter and Slither. I mean, Slither's probably the bigger of those three, of course, because James Gunn's blown up so much now.
Sure.
But I really like Splinter. If anybody hasn't seen Splinter, it's pretty much about two couples. One that's like a fugitive couple, and they carjack the other couple who's just kind of on like a mini road trip. And they end up at a gas station alongside something that's very non-human. It's never really explained, but I don't want to go
Mm,
further than that. But
totally.
it's a very good film though, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's one of those hidden gems from like 2008 or 2009. And then Starry Eyes is one that's about an actress that is trying to become like famous, and eventually something takes her on a body horror journey. But
Mm,
other than that, the only one I can think that's like a super like kind of hidden gem, not really talked about as much. Of course, there's some newer ones that I really like. Like, well, I'm sure we'll get to the Substance, and
sure.
like I mentioned, Cuckoo is great, and even Cronenberg's, Brandon Cronenberg stuff is great. But hidden gem wise, I'd have to say Hatching. I don't know if you ever saw Hatching. It's pretty much about this girl who finds an egg in the woods.
I need to see it. That was one that you suggested to me like a year or so ago.
Yeah.
But it looks cool. Yeah,
That's another one where it's like the main character's body isn't altering, but there's something that's going on in the movie that's body horror. Um, that are, and it's a really good film. I think it's like Finnish or something like that, or it's
sure.
somewhere in like a European country or whatever. But very good, and I highly recommend it. It was on Shutter for a while, but I don't know if it still is. But do you have any of those, or do you have any hidden gems that you want to mention, or?
Um, I'm trying to think specifically. I do actually have a fun fact about Cronenberg that I never had heard before. That I wanted to add was I guess his mom like went through had cancer. And so like in that process of like going through all of that, that was like a huge, I guess that was like a huge influence on him as far as like why he did a lot of body horror stuff because he had to watch like the literal evolution of his mom and how she deteriorated and everything because of her cancer. So I thought that was like very interesting to be like a director and like he had such a profound like impact on that and then he gave us all the craze like well this is
Yeah,
how I feel it's like oh shit like yeah he definitely put us through the ringer as far as like what could happen to the human body um
through the dead ringer, but
yeah the dead ring but but yeah as far as gyms I love Society um that one is like the epitome of and again I don't know if that gets to count as a hidden gem these days but in my opinion like I would say the average horror fan probably wouldn't know what Society is.
yeah, no, I'm with
uh
you.
so so yeah I love that movie. I mean it's just I love especially I love the like commentary in that film about like having to be like accepted and part of like specific like social classes and cultural groups, you know what I mean? And then that movie just like jumps the shark with the shunting and like gets so silly. But like there's so much stretchy, gooey monsters that it's like you can't not love that movie. Um, so yeah, so I'd say that's one of them. It's funny, we even joke for Toxic Coffin doing a Society drop, but we literally only want to do some nude color sweatpants. And, spoilers for anybody that's listening to this if you haven't seen Society, but there's this scene where one character's face gets placed on a butt and it's literally like you see him bent over and it's the main character's dad and he's like I guess you could call me a butthead. It's like
Yeah.
the stupidest dad joke but his literal face is now on an ass cheek. And that's how he's mutated. And we've always thought it would be funny just to do kind of like, the pug shirts that has like a
Yeah.
pug face. Like we want to do that, but on nude color sweatpants and just like it would be the worst thing to ever wear in public. But if you know kind of thing. So,
Do a
but yeah.
towel, kind of like Dick Towel from It's Always Sunny, but have the towel
Yeah.
be the butt.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Society's a great one. I think that was like also just one of those films like as I got older and I started like, well, I've seen like the main big stuff. I was finally exploring more genres. Like I was getting into like giallos and this and that was like maybe that's why it also sticks with me is just because it was one of those core memory like foundational like oh like this is a whole nother subgenre that I can really do like a deep dive on like 80s body horror stuff that I've never seen. So yeah, great movie. Another one I would add in there, let's see, would I don't know, I guess if we want to, I'll throw a new one in there. I really, I was going to talk about Slither. But I guess that's pretty obvious. But there's a new one called Mads that came out. Did you see that on Shudder?
No, that's the one take film though, right? I've heard a bunch of good things about it.
Yeah, and that was really cool. And I mean, I guess in my opinion, it's like a body horror film. Like it's kind of like touches on like how a drug is affecting, people and altering them. So, um, it's less of like the super visceral, like stretchy skin and meltiness, but it does have like a kind of interesting, like subtle body horror take on it. And so I think that's what I just really appreciated because it was like, you know, I do feel like there was an uptick in body horror over the years recently. But it was cool to see it done in a different way. Like to me, it made me feel like watching the movie Wreck, and Wreck is a zombie film, but this would be like, what if Wreck was a body horror sci-fi, film?
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, that would be kind of more of the lesser knowns that I'd want to point out, if you will. So,
Oh yeah. Now, and for me, some of the ones like you kind of mentioned, there's some that like I love that could be considered body horror. Like I love like Ginger Snaps is probably like top three werewolf movie for me. And then I really enjoy Frankenhooker. That's like one of the funnest films, but
mhm,
it's one of those that they're films that probably have body horror aspects, but I wouldn't call them body horror. And
sure.
there's some of my favorite body horror scenes, period, in movies that are not body horror at all. Like for instance, Color Out of Space. The
Yeah.
the scene where the mom and son meld together is one of the fucking most excruciating things I've watched in like
Mhm.
the last 10 years. And like like the way they're crying out and stuff, it's just wild to me. That and then in Suspiria, the remake, where the
Oh,
girl
sure. Yeah.
gets trapped in that room of mirrors. Spoiler alert for that, but she kind of like stumbles into a room of mirrors, and then as Susie's dancing, the girl like her body just starts cracking into all these different
Mhm.
things, and two of the greatest body horror scenes, but in no way would I call either movie a body horror movie. I guess
Sure.
Suspiria, you could kind of argue it because some of the stuff that happens towards the end, of course, the remake, not the original. But is there any films like that for you that really stick out as like, having great body horror scenes, but you wouldn't necessarily call them like body horror films?
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely. And that's where again, that's where it gets kind of tricky because it's like what defines body horror? Because like in Jennifer's Body, like that could be a body horror film, but she's really like possessed,
Yeah,
She's got like a demon inside her. I mean, even Evil Dead, dude, like that is body horror central. But again, that is like demonic alterations of the body. But I mean, like as far as like the way everything is mutated and stuff in that movie, like it's I would consider all of those effects very body horror driven.
yeah,
So those are some. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, Street Trash. It doesn't get more slimy and goopy than
yeah.
them melting from drinking the what is it, Tenafray, was is it, oh
Viper.
my, Viper. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, but would you call Street Trash body horror? I don't
Well,
know
that's
what you
where it
call
gets
it.
weird because there's
Yeah.
like I feel like there's a whole subgenre just called melt movies. Like you got The Incredible Melting Man, you got Slime City, you got
Yeah.
I have a shirt actually that's literally like melt movies. The Blob, it's
Mm.
counted as a melt movie.
Yeah.
So,
The
but those
Blob is
are
another. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was about to say. They're melt movies, but I would also yeah, I would say melt movies could be considered like a mini subgenre of body horror
Mhm.
in general for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even It Follows, like, I mean, technically, like, that's like a sexually transmitted curse, but, uh, is that body horror? You
Yeah,
know? So yeah, I mean, there's so much, and which makes it kind of hard to like narrow in on a lot of specifics. But yeah, I mean, I think anything that dives into stretchy rubber monsters with all the slime and, physical alterations like The Thing, again, sci-fi creature film is how I would constitute that, but I mean, how can you not call that also body horror? So, but
No, I'm with you 100%. Especially my favorite, probably my favorite all-time makeup effects artist. No offense to anybody that's been on the show listening, but is Screaming Mad George, and it's because
mm,
he does body horror so well. You know, he did The Shunting. He did a lot of Bride of Reanimator. He pretty much did a lot of stuff that Brian Usna did in general. So like even
sure.
stuff in the movie like The Dentist can be considered body horror, some of the shit that he
Yeah.
does to people. And so that's one thing that I love about body horror is it stretches so wide. And there's movies that have won Oscars that could be considered body horror, like the fucking Black Swan, in my opinion, is
Hmm.
at least a body horror light, you know what I mean? So, but speaking of that, there's a lot of newer films that have come out that are like you mentioned, body horror has had a semi-renaissance. And even
Yeah.
now, there's like two new films on Shudder that I want to check out. One called Grafted that I've heard is pretty good, and then everybody's saying that movie coming out, The Ugly Stepsister, is really fucking good. That
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot of hype on that too.
Yeah, it had a trailer come out that was very The Substance-y, but people are saying don't think about it like The Substance, but know that
Okay.
it goes places like The Substance, like that. It's pretty rough. So I'm excited for both of those. And but speaking of that, we spoke on The Substance. We got the Brandon Cronenberg films, a bunch of other stuff. Do you have a more modern, Cuckoo? Do you have like a more modern favorite horror film that like you has really caught your eye over the past few years that you keep returning to or anything? Or
I mean, and maybe I have a feeling we're obviously gonna gush about the substance,
yeah,
so we can get into that. But I mean, that is my favorite modern body horror film.
yeah,
It's probably my favorite modern horror film over the past 5 years or so. Um, the last one to probably shock me though, or surprise me in a way, was Possessor. Like that movie blew my mind. And which is funny because we're just circling right back to Cronenberg because it's his son, Brandon
yeah,
Cronenberg. Um, but yeah, that movie kind of like checked all the boxes that I love, especially the like weird sci-fi, take on it, with how they're, entering other people's bodies as spies and whatnot. It's just a really cool movie. Another one, and I think this kind of like opens the conversation to like, you know, like early body horror. It was about like your just physical, whether it's like you're mutating, transforming into something else. You know, like violations on the body is like, kind of a theme, or just like disgust of like what's happening to your body. But I think in modern day, like with everything that's been going on, like socially is like especially with like all the LGBT and like trans community, like you have movies like Titan,
yeah,
and like that movie is another one that like absolutely blew my mind. um and exploring modern day issues that we have as far as like feeling comfortable with our own sexuality, like what do I even, what are my preferences, what do I believe in, and like that's a perfect avenue to explore body horror in a completely different way that really wasn't done, in the 70s and the 80s. So like Titane's a great modern day body horror film that touches on a lot of those kind of like subject matters and everything. So have you seen Titane?
Yes, I actually really enjoy. I think I have it on Blu-ray, but I
Yeah,
really enjoyed Titane. I've watched that a couple of times. But you bringing up Titane made me remember probably what would be considered my favorite body horror, like if you consider it body horror,
sure.
but I consider it more of like a folk, like a modern folk horror. But it's one of my favorites of the past decade, and that's Killing of a Sacred Deer. Like the way
Oh
their
yeah.
their bodies are shutting down when they're all like cursed and stuff. Like that can be
Mhm.
considered body horror. Like the fact that you're losing control of your body and like just slowly getting like kind of like sick to the point of death, just because of like, for no reason that can be explained is, like I said, it's almost like that's why I kind of put it in folk horror more because it's almost like a curse. But the fact that it's happening to these kids and their bodies is fucking wild. You know what I mean? So that's one of my favorites. But Titane, though, that one was definitely went under the radars. And Julia Decornell has, I can't remember the name of it, but she has the director of
Mhm.
it who also did Raw. She has a new film coming out soon, which I guess Raw could be considered. I've heard people
Yeah.
call that body horror too. So,
Yeah.
um, but she has a new film coming out this year. It's one that I'm super stoked on. But sorry if anybody hears dogs barking. I've been hearing them in the past. It was raining outside, so I thought I'd be safe with my window open, and there's dogs barking. So
It's just me. I'm just barking. Roof, roof.
I took my shoes off. My dogs are barking.
Got that dog in you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Titane. Speaking of big ass truck, uh, they should do
Right.
the soundtrack for that.
For her new new shit.
For another Titan. That's a movie that because I feel like describing body horror to people casually is also a really funny thing to do.
Yeah.
And when I saw that movie, I have this group of dudes that I have breakfast with pretty much every week, and and I feel like I'm always the curveball with subject matter sometimes. And I was like, I saw this crazy movie last night called Titan, and they're like, oh yeah, what's it about? And I was like, going into it, I was like, well, the character like has relationships with vehicles, and they're like, what does that mean? I was like, I mean like a intimate relationship. And they're
Yeah.
like, what? And I'm like they're like, is it like a like Transformer situation? I'm like, no. And I was like, you kind of just have to see this movie. And I had a friend that was like, I don't think I ever want to see whatever this movie is. And I'm like, it's a little more advanced.
I had a very
But
similar situation when that movie was coming out. That was when I was assistant manager at the movie theater still. And
uh
so I was sitting with my manager and then like a shift manager, and we were sitting through like looking at all the we'd every now and then just go through and look at like boxofficemojo.com and look at like what
mhm.
movies were coming up. And the movie Titan came up, and they were like, "What the fuck is this?" So they like read the synopsis, and it was literally like, and of course it didn't say exactly this, but it was like a woman has sexual relations with a car and becomes pregnant, and both
Yeah.
of them were like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "That sounds right up my alley, dude." It's like I'm
Yeah.
stoked for this shit. Like,
Yeah,
it was,
that's like I feel like body horror is a good way to uh you meet somebody new and you're trying to see if they match your freak, and you're like, let
yeah,
me subtly drop, do you like this? All right, we can be friends.
right. Or-
Um,
That's why, like you said, you don't really understand Cronenberg in your teenage years. 'Cause it's
oh
like
gosh, yeah.
it's the same
Yeah,
thing as
exactly.
like people nowadays that don't have that like cinema or like just crazy
Mhm.
genre mind. They feel the same way teenagers feel watching fucking Cronenberg. Like there was nothing into it. Like
Yep.
they just see a bunch of wild shit on screen, pretty much.
Yeah, the other thing too, I think you kind of touched base on this a little bit with technology, but that's like a whole nother subject matter that I feel like just opens the door for body horror because of like I don't know, Black Mirror kind of does a little bit of that. I wouldn't say most of their episodes are body horror specific, but like it's a lot of it's more psychological,
Yeah,
and how technology is affecting us as society. But and Cronenberg definitely explored that from the video game aspect of existence. But I feel like more than ever, we can, use technology to like implement body horror in a way, whether it's, there's been a lot of like AI stuff, but whether it's like cell phone like causing you to break down into something digital or, so I don't know, it's crazy to me how you would think you couldn't make another body horror film, but like maybe that's the beauty of this subgenre is the fact that it's not reliant on a monster like a vampire where there's only so much lore and so much that you can, expand upon the original concept. Like body horror has no rules other than the fact that it's just, you know, your body is transforming or mutating or this. And so like as we evolve as a society, like we're always going to have different threats that can do that. So
yeah.
so we can always have body horror films, which is cool, and they can still be fresh. I guess speaking of body horror, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit with like the fingernails. Like, what what freaks you out the most? Like, what do you want to see in a body horror film that you're like either you don't want to see it or you're just like, yeah, okay, here we go. This is making me uncomfortable.
Fingernails do get me every time. Really like slow cut, like for instance in the
Mm,
substance, like this when it shows like her back like
mm,
slowly like doing stuff. That always kind of is one of I wouldn't say it gets me, but those are one of the things that I'm like, oh, here we go, and like it kind of like it starts to put you in an unsettling mood because you don't know where it's gonna like lead to.
sure.
Um, but pretty much other than fingernails, I just like to see something new. You know, like the shunting is crazy. The
Mm,
Monstro Elizasu is crazy. You know, even in From Beyond, the fucking little thing coming out of his fucking forehead's crazy. Like it's even in Starry Eyes, like that one's like a little less crazy, but it still takes you places like you wouldn't expect a body horror to go when she starts like
sure.
beating her friend in the face with a weight. spoiler alert, but I guess I should have said
Hmm.
spoiler alert first. But it's just one of those things like I will say another thing that gets me though, and like Splinter kind of made me think about it, and same with Suspiria, but bones breaking. When it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
when it's something uncontrolled where your finger all of a sudden just snaps backwards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like that type of shit, or like your arm just breaks without like any kind of contact. It's just fucking that type of shit that gets me every time. Just because those breaks are something that could really happen. It's just
Mhm.
happening in an unrealistic way, of course. But what about you?
Definitely fingernails. Like I can't stand scenes where they have like people lose fingernails. Like, isn't there like a really horrible scene in the Evil Dead remake 2013 one that it loses? I swear there's a scene like that. Um,
There's something in the bathroom. I can't remember what it is that she does, but she does something in the bathroom and then she ends up like sawing at her own face with the thing.
yeah.
Eventually,
Oh
yeah.
gosh, so uncomfortable. I hate that. I hate feet so
Oh
much.
yeah.
Uh, it's big. Like I'm the opposite of Tarantino.
Right.
So yeah, so anything that like the scene and again this isn't a body horror film but like um specifically like the scene was it Talk to Me where
Oh
where
yeah.
the sucking on the foot and I was just like ugh, I hate this so much but like that kind of stuff grosses me out um even the movie oh my gosh my brain is Cabin Fever.
Yeah.
Eli Roth's Cabin Fever, like
Oh yeah. Body
great.
horror for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great body horror film of the early 2000s. I feel like there wasn't a whole lot in the early 2000s that we can really, because everything was so focused on like teen slashers and zombies, I feel like at that time,
Yeah.
or like Saw type movies. But yeah, that freaked me out. The idea of like just getting a rash. Like I don't like whenever there's like the like scratching of an arm and you can hear like I feel like body horror like goes extra into like the whole ASMR sound design too. So when you get the like real like
Oh yeah.
like gross noises instantly, I'm like, ugh. I don't like it. And definitely Cabin Fever does a lot of that. I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
I hate this. But yeah,
Yeah.
so.
No, I
Or
also do.
teeth. Oh, we didn't
Yeah.
even talk about that. Teeth getting pulled out and stuff like that. I hate that.
Yeah.
That's terrible. I used to have stress dreams where I like would have to go to talk to people and I'd be like full marble mouth and my teeth would just fall out. So yeah, definitely that in movies is one to get me.
Especially
So,
slow pulls like the substance. Fucking no, and then
mhm.
no, that fucking shit's rough. But speaking of the substance, if unless you have any other topics, we can kind of end on the substance if you want, because I know that's kind of what our
Yeah.
goal was to go from Cronenberg to Coralie. But when you first saw the substance, did you get to see it in a theater or?
Yep. Yeah, I saw it in the theater. Saw it up in Virginia. It didn't play anywhere near me. I think that movie was too crazy for my small town little movie theater. Um, but yeah, saw it in Virginia. I was lucky enough to like see it really early.
Yeah,
Um, I just I remember seeing a trailer for it and lately I've been like really good at not watching like full trailers. Like I still have never watched the full trailer to Bring Her Back.
yeah,
Um, but I've seen like little tiny teasers and I'm like, no, this is enough. I don't need to see any more. Same thing with Weapons. Like I haven't seen anything for that. And
yeah,
that's one, I know you and I are both really excited for. But The Substance saw I saw just like a tiny little bit and I was like, oh, Demi Moore, that's interesting. Um, and then I think it was like as soon as I saw like like the basic concept of it and like seeing the syringe with like the green substance in it and I was just like, oh, this is giving me like major Cronenberg or Reanimator vibes. Like, okay, I say no more. I don't
yeah,
want to see anything else. I just want to go see this movie looks crazy. Um, and I think there was like a few initial like this movie's gonna blow your mind kind of like early responses. Um, so so I knew like okay, this is gonna be different. And invited some friends to go see the movie with me. And luckily they're like big horror fans.
yeah,
But again, really didn't have any idea of what we were getting into. Mostly going in blind and I mean, as soon as the movie started and like the I like noticed the like weird fish eyes and like the pumping like kind of more electronic like music and everything. I was like, "Oh, we're in for a ride." And then once it ended, I knew it was an amazing film because there's some ladies that were came to see it like also blind and they're like, did you know that was gonna be like that?" And we were like, "Oh, we had no clue." And they're like, and I was like, "Yeah, it was pretty crazy, wasn't it?" And I don't think they liked it
Yeah.
because it was just like they went on a whim. And I was like, "Yeah, that was awesome." They're like, you could tell they were like, "I need a shower. Like, I feel weird." And, but yeah, crazy movie, so good. It stuck with me for, like I probably couldn't stop thinking about it for at least like 2 weeks after seeing that movie. But
Yeah.
but
No,
yeah, what
same.
about you? Did you get to see it anywhere fun?
Yeah, pretty much same here. I got to see it up in Virginia. I went to the
Yeah, okay.
AMC, Lynn Haven, for anybody in the Virginia Beach area. Somebody left a comment on our episodes, one of our episodes today, saying that they just heard of us and they're from VB. So shout
Oh,
out to
sick.
them. I wish I remembered their handle, but I'm definitely gonna comment back when we get off of this. But I saw it like right before getting on. But either way, so I saw it over at the AMC Lynn Haven, and what was funny is I saw the trailer, but the trailer didn't give away too much. You just kind of knew that
Yeah, it
who
did
it's
good.
yeah, it's like you know who it starred and that it was going to go somewhere crazy. Like you knew that it was a genre film, but you just didn't know exactly where it was going to go.
Sure.
So I ended up hitting up one of my buddies, Richard, who lives up in Virginia, and we're good friends with him and his wife, and their kid plays with our kid a lot. So we kind of turned it into a play date for um, the moms and kids to hang out while me and him went and saw a movie, and we went to see The Substance. And on the way over there I was like, oh man, like I'm so stoked for this movie because it was Sunday that it was the Sunday it came out, so it'd been out a few days and gotten the reviews, like you said, this is gonna blow your mind, it's a fucking wild ride and all this stuff. But I
Hmm.
didn't have any spoilers or other than like the light trailer or whatever. And so when I told him that we are going to see The Substance, he was like, I've never heard of it, like I've never even heard anything about it. And I was like, oh
Hmm.
cool, well I'm not gonna tell you anything, make it funner. And when we walked out of that movie, both me and him, he was like, dude, that's the best movie I've seen in so long. He's like, I'm so glad you didn't say shit about it. And I pretty much said the same thing. I'm with you. I thought about it for weeks after. I was listening to like every podcast that I could cover it. I was listening to as many interviews as I could with the cast and, Coralie Farge. And no, I adore this film as well. It's definitely my favorite of last year, but it's
Sure.
definitely top five of like the last decade for sure, just in general.
Yeah, yeah. It's and I know people have been reacting a lot to it, so it's not like this is anything new, but I mean, I I would see people post conversations with like their parents, like
Yeah.
sharing it on like social media, like, mom or dad is like, "Oh, I'm checking out that movie that you saw," and it's like, "Oh gosh," and then but even like older generations that somebody that you would think couldn't handle a movie like that is like that movie was powerful, like that was crazy, like I
Yeah.
couldn't look away. Yeah, it was gross and weird, but I think also what makes that movie so good is there's a lot of social commentary in this film, especially about, the roles of women in regards to beauty and youth and like also like just how their values are in like a male dominated, Hollywood. Um and that's not like a uncommon topic in film, especially nowadays, like there's a lot of that, Um and but this felt like it was done in such a way that it didn't feel like it was just being shoved down your throat because it was a popular topic, currently like a trending subject matter. It felt like a great cautionary tale, which made the body horror aspect of the movie that much better because it was like, you really are learning a valuable lesson with this movie. So I don't know, it just felt more important than other films that maybe touch on these kind of topics. So I don't know if you felt that way, but I definitely did.
Oh no, I 100% agree. And my response to that reminded me of my favorite body horror film of all time, and I'm so fucking mad I forgot about it. But Freaked,
Sorry.
the movie
Oh
Freaked,
yeah.
is the
I
best
almost
fucking.
brought that up actually earlier because I was like, would you consider Freak a body horror film? So,
Of course, they're changing people into fucking freaks. How did I
Yeah,
forget
yeah.
that? I'm so mad at myself. That's literally like if anybody's followed the show for the past 5 years it's been out, I post about Freaked all the time. We did a watch along on Freaked like the first year in. I love Freaked. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
But
I think it was one of my roundtable episodes of the
yeah,
past few months too.
but
So
I mean that just brings up a whole nother point of how important. I mean, this is a bold statement, but is body horror the most important subgenre or vehicle of horror? You know,
I
like,
I definitely could see so because like that's why I thought of Freaked because it's like it's this crazy heightened world that everything's so
mhm,
goofy and funny, but the whole point of the movie is it's like the way that these high uh like the wealthy and like
mhm,
these agencies and stuff are just poisoning like you know the they're pretty much poisoning the country and like our ecosystem and all that stuff and
sure,
we're just laughing about it because famous people are telling us to and stuff and Freaked obviously takes like a way bigger turn but like you said with the substance it's like the way that Coralie Forget took this very important message and turned it into something that is just and threw it into a completely campy world that we knew from
mhm.
jump was campy. I mean, they're fucking it's snowing in LA in the movie at the very
Oh,
beginning because of when this it's showing the star throughout the years it shows snow. It's like it doesn't snow in fucking LA. And then like the way everything is like the way the bathrooms are like immediately looks like The Shining. Like everything's so
mhm.
visually striking that you already kind of knew you were in this heightened world. And of
Yeah.
course they double down with certain things, like when she watches the trailer for The Substance and when Dennis Quaid's eating fucking shrimp and shit, the way they show that and stuff. But
Oh, yeah. Ugh. That
that's
scene
body
where
horror.
he's eating the prawns, and I think that was the first moment I noticed in the movie that like the camera work was very different.
Yeah.
And even his like, I mean, he's clearly wearing like contacts or something, but the way the camera like shows him, and it's so gross. I've never like felt, I hate when people smack their food too. So
Yeah.
like that whole situation, I was like, oh my God, I can't watch him eat
Yeah.
this anymore. Like this is worse than any, visceral violence I've ever seen. This is gross. So,
No, but between like just the way she was able to place such an important message in such a wild film is what makes body horror important and makes the great body horror films work so well, like that, Videodrome.
mhm,
Even something like Black Swan, being, Black Swan is almost like a different type of message that is also like it's kind of like the same message as The Substance, but in a different way. It's
sure.
not about when you age out, it's about the pressures that certain people will put on you because they fail. Like her mom couldn't do it, so she treated her that way, and then the way that it's like about um, the negative cultures of certain things. Like people look at ballet as like such a beautiful thing, but when it becomes obsessive, it's like it becomes an
Mhm.
issue and stuff. And same thing with the substance, you know what I mean? Like she's literally just a fucking aerobics dancer,
Mhm.
literally at that point. And it's like, but that's such an important thing that instead of when she becomes hot again, she doesn't go out and become an actress again. She goes back and just becomes a fucking aerobics instructor. You know what I mean? Again, so
Yeah,
no, it's just I'm with you. It's body horror definitely might be the most important subgenre as far as the messages it's trying to tell. Because most of the time, I mean, when you think about slasher, that's just it's that's
it's just
most
killing.
yeah, most of
Yeah,
the time those are the ones that lack a message. And then when you go on to supernatural, there doesn't really need to be a message. There's more about like love prevails is most of the time the message, which is fine,
sure.
but it's always the same fucking thing. And then same thing with like vampire films. It's always like there's really not. I mean, I'm not saying there's not a message hidden in a lot of these. Like, of course, zombie films have a zombie films are probably one of the second most, or not one of the second, but one of the most important subgenres as well because of the way they're able to hide like messages in those movies as well. From Dawn of the Dead to Day of the Dead. There's two different complete
Sure.
messages. The argument between science and military in Day of the Dead, and then just the consumerism and Dawn of the Dead and shit.
Sure.
But no, body horror definitely for day-to-day people, I feel like is the most impactful as far as like when you
Mhm.
understand the message that they're trying to tell, like with Crimes of the Future, like the eating plastic shit. It's like we're literally out here eating shit that says in the ingredients plastic and nobody says anything.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
like, but then people watch that movie and they're like, that was fucking dumb. It didn't make sense. We're living it. What are you talking about?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, maybe.
evolution is scary.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about how important it was, and honestly, until we were like really like talking about all this. But yeah, I'd say probably body horror. Um, psychological horror and maybe folk horror. Like maybe those are the three most important genres in all of this because it has the most depth in what you can explore,
Yeah,
in the meaningfulness. Like the other stuff is a lot more shallow, like even if they are cool, you can only do so much with it. But like with folklore, it's all about tradition and spirituality and like, like that'll never change because we're always going to have societies that, have different religions and beliefs and, so that's super important. And then psychological, like I guess could be like body horror adjacent for your mind, but it's like, that's also never going to change. We're always going to be battling our brains.
yeah.
So yeah. So if you say you don't like body horror, but you're a giant horror fan, that's not true. You love body horror because it's in so much. But yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You might not like films that are slow burn and like only focus on body horror, but
sure.
like I'm sure you love The Thing. I'm sure you
Mhm.
love The Fly. You know, a lot of people don't look at The Fly and think body horror. Some people think just sci-fi just because it's like an experiment, but it is body horror. But
Yeah.
like you and me think of it body horror first, probably, but I could see where somebody was like, "Oh, that's sci-fi." You know what I mean? But and I wouldn't
Yeah.
argue it because like we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, almost every body horror movie has a subgenre. I feel like the biggest one, like if you could draw those two graph, like that graph that's just two circles that like
Hmm.
intermeet or whatever. I feel like if you did a psychological and body horror one, the middle would be full as fuck because there's so many
Yeah.
movies that, when
Yeah.
they start to deal with the body, they also leak into the mind. Like one movie I was thinking about earlier that I almost shouted out, but then I was like, it really doesn't go into the body horror thing is Censor. I really liked Censor from a few
Oh,
years
sure.
back. And even that one I think you told me to watch, fuck, what was it? The one where she was under the sleep experiments? Is like don't something.
Oh, I actually never saw that one. I know exactly what you're talking. I can see the poster art because it reminds me of the movie Possessor. And I heard, Come True. Are you talking about that?
Yes, Come True. That's right.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking don't something because it was like two words. Yeah, Come True was like very
Yeah.
you could consider that one kind of body horror at points. I know you said you didn't see it, so I don't want to go too far,
Yeah.
but it's mostly
That's not,
psychological and stuff. But it's on Hulu, so definitely check that out. But
okay, cool.
I'm with you though. And to say all this, I'm definitely not saying that those are the
Sure, sure, sure.
superior subgenres because, like, I
You
definitely
like what you
love.
like.
Yeah, I love slashers. Like, I probably like slashers over body horror every day. Like, to be
Mhm.
honest with you, but. It's just because I can throw on a slasher and enjoy it mindlessly. Where a body horror movie, if I'm going to watch it for the first time, I need to be able to give it my full attention.
Sure.
Like I can't just dive in and out. And then because if you do dive in and out, you can miss something that really makes the movie like that's where you can make a movie like a 9 out of 10 or a movie a 6 out of 10 just because you missed a couple sentences. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
where
Yeah.
films like slashers, you can miss a cool kill, but you saw three other cool kills. So it's like that movie's
Hmm.
pretty fucking dope.
Yep.
But and like folk horror is probably my favorite if I had to pick a subgenre just because of the stuff that could be fit. That's another one like we'll have to do an episode on one day because like
Oh
just
yeah.
like body horror, there's so much stuff you could fit into that from classic folk horror stuff to modern, with like Lamb. Like Lamb is one I was starting to think about
Mm.
mentioning as well because I was like that might be body horror, but not really. It's just folk horror because these are just beings. They're not like people that are changing into these beings, the
Sure,
Williams and
sure.
stuff. So, but no, but I'm with you. Body horror is one of the most interesting for sure too. And then it I feel like it started with Cronenberg. Of course, there might have been some instances before, but I mean, literally when he came in, he just did body horror after body horror after body horror.
Mm.
And now I'm glad to see where it's at with Coralie
Sure.
and company. Like even I mentioned kind of briefly a couple times Cuckoo, but I thought that on the
Mm.
second watch, man, I really enjoyed Cuckoo. I thought that was excellent. I liked it the first time, but I went to like a 10 o'clock showing, so by the time it was ending, I was like ready
Sure.
to get out. And that's another
Yeah.
movie that you pick up more details and like
I'm
more.
trying to remember too. I want to say I'm almost positive that body horror is a more contemporary classification too, in general. Like it wasn't something like there's no like mention of body horror in like older literature or whatever. So it's not something that, people are like, oh yeah, this has been around. But yeah, I think like you said, I think it really is like Cronenberg, like because of that rise of style of films, like that's where it got classified. So,
Yeah, as far
but
as film goes, like of course H.P. Lovecraft was writing body horror like
oh
back
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, as far as like film goes, yeah, Cronenberg definitely was the first one to come in and be like, let's make this like and
An
just
official subject or, so yeah.
yeah, and did it originally too. He wasn't out there just adapting H.P.'s
Hmm.
Lovecraft shit and being like, "Oh, look, I made a subgenre." He was just writing movies and making them, you know what I mean? So,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, back to the substance though. I I I don't know. I feel like anybody should go see that, whether you like horror movies or not. It's there's a lot of challenging scenes to it. So if you hate like if you can't handle like you mentioned like slow cutting or like needles and stuff like that, it's probably a really hard movie for you to watch. But it just kind of like blew my mind how they were able to achieve what they did with that movie. And even just like the close-up scenes, like I thought the way that I mean, obviously the movie's about the substance and having a better, more attractive version of yourself, and not aging and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember thinking like, man, it's the way it's a very kind of sexy film, like it's got a lot of like, it's graphic in that way, but
It's got the male gaze shot just shot by a woman instead of
yeah, yeah, exactly. But one thing I read was after seeing it, somebody said like the way they shot clips of like her doing like the aerobics, and it's supposed to be like, oh, this is like this is a little it's a little seductive right now, these
yeah.
scenes and everything. But they mentioned they're like it's more like a like Pepsi commercial is like how they're trying to show like what women's bodies values is. And it's like, oh yeah, you think of like a Pepsi commercial where the bottle is like the condensation is on the bottle and it's like, oh, this looks so refreshing. And they took that same approach for like the female body,
Yeah.
in this movie. And I'm like, oh yeah, they really do make everything so like an ad, like it's interesting. So, but
Especially nowadays, I mean, like shit, they'll put Cardi B half naked in a fucking Pepsi commercial, literally. Like it's
yeah,
like, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with,
sure.
with that, but it definitely I can see where it applies that pressure to the older actresses and stuff like that are trying to stay, like exactly the message of the movie. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like how immediately they're like, "Oh, Demi Moore's not hot anymore." Bullshit. We all saw the movie. Like,
Yeah.
no, so no, and I'm with you. Those shots, like they linger, but it's almost like it does it with more of a purpose, like kind of just to show
Hmm.
you that not. It's not really to show you, like it's not really just to show the like seductiveness of it. And of
Sure.
course, like in that scene, the pump it up scene, it pays off with like a grossness at the end or whatever. But
Yeah.
um, it's one of the well, no, I guess not because that happens later on. I always get that mixed up. The pump it up scene happens and everything ends fine because she's like, "Have a good day, guys," and then the next
Hmm.
time they're dancing is when the growth comes out her butt or
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah.
uh, but like it's one of those things that it's like they're showing it and they're showing it so long, like it happens for so long because it's like they almost want you to feel uncomfortable, like uh like the male gaze shot's there, but it's in the middle of this movie where you're not supposed to like you're supposed to be worried about Demi Moore, not sitting
Yeah.
there enjoying this young girl be like hot. You know what I mean? So it's like
Sure.
the way it's placed to me like works perfectly because at that point I'm like my mind is like it happens so long that once it starts happening, it's like I'm not like staring at this girl this whole time. I'm starting to think I'm like, fuck, she's like really she's gonna ruin Demi Moore. You know what I mean? Like and all the stuff that's gonna
Hmm.
like all the consequences that come with it and stuff. So no, it gives you time to sit. Like that's the thing I like about this film is like there's certain scenes like that that kind of happen and they're like kind of lengthy, but it gives you
Sure.
time to sit with what's already happened in the film and think about it without like because if it just keeps going and keeps going, it's gonna overload you with information. And I like films that like let you sit with the information that you've
Hmm.
gotten, but do it in a way that's still entertaining. Like I'm still entertained because the music's fun and like upbeat, and there's
Hmm.
just nothing but cool people, like pretty people on stage or like on a thing dancing. It's like so it keeps you like entertained, but at the same time you get a time like a moment to take a breath because this movie moves so fast at the beginning.
Hmm.
So no, I think those shots are like super important and make a lot of sense. You know what I mean? And it's also easier not to sound like this, but it's also easier to not think of them as sexual
Yeah.
or sexist when a woman shot it because if a man shot it, it's easier to be like, oh, he just did it because he like when Quentin Tarantino shoots feet, you're just
Yeah.
like that motherfucker wanted to see some feet. Like for instance, he wrote Dawn of the From Dusk Till Dawn, and he gets Selma Hayek's toe in the mouth, so we all know
Sure.
who wrote that scene. And it's like, but with Coralie Forget, we know she didn't do it for like. There's no weirdness to it. There's no like
Hmm.
watching this movie and thinking, oh, she did this for herself. Like
Oh
no, she
yeah.
did it
No,
for a reason.
it's interesting for how graphic, some of some of the scenes are with like as much nudity as it has, which also I know they use a lot of like body suits and stuff like that. So just to make them feel more comfortable and whatnot, or at least I think
Wally
uh
did.
yeah, exactly. And but you know, like I love the movie Humanoids from the Deep. It's a trashy film, but that movie is sleazy. Like that you can feel the like male like grossness to it, and some of the scenes that it has where it's like, yeah, that is more exploitive and whatnot. Whereas this, there it doesn't have that sleazy factor to it, even though there is, the graphic scenes. If anything, there's like more empowerment to it, in a
Yeah.
lot of ways where it's like owning your body or owning, like, yeah, I look good and I'm proud about this, Like, so there's like the, oh, kitty cat.
Right. He was like,
Um,
nobody wants to hear two straight white men talk about this shit.
yeah, I know. Yeah, this is the most like you don't need to hear this from my mouth.
No,
But
I'm just kidding.
um but there is that like interesting like like yin and yang to like Demi Moore's insecurities and then Sue's empowerment, so it's I don't know, it's just done in such a you get to see how gross Hollywood is and how like Dennis Quaid's character and how gross he is, and you see that, but then also you get to see like the internal dialogue for women and how like they want to look good but then also are afraid, like they have this pressure to be beautiful and have these standards, so you see their internal struggle. I don't know, it's just there's so much about that movie that and I have a daughter, and I grew up in a family of all boys, so like I don't know, it just made me appreciate like, okay, I need to like look out for like what I say around my daughter and like promote like how she needs to be as a young woman and everything. And I don't know, it's a the the commentary in that movie is just done so well. So,
Yeah. No, I know. I'm 100% with you. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is Carrie, and
mhm,
the whole movie there's not much, but the opening scene is literally just naked girls in a locker room, and they're supposed to be teenage girls. It's like
mhm.
Brian De Palma, was that necessary? Like, no.
Yeah,
Like,
nope,
how many times have we made the It movie and we left out, that one part of the book that nobody wants to see on the movie because
exactly.
but it's like the same thing. It's like, Carrie, I mean, De Palma, you didn't need to do that shit. And I feel like it's also a commentary on that, like the times when it's
Mhm.
unnecessary. Like I said, in this movie, it's finally necessary, but she knows by putting it in there, people are immediately going to come. Like the people that hate the movie are immediately going to be like, oh, it's just uh women, like it's so funny when people don't like a movie and they're like, oh, these are, it's exploiting women. It's like that means you just didn't
Sure.
like the movie and pay attention because it's far from that. But I did mean to mention earlier when we were talking about seeing the movie though, an elderly woman did walk out of the substance when I saw it. She was like, I'm out. It was the
Yeah.
teeth pulling scene too. It was when the
Oh yeah.
in the bathroom. She was like, I'm gone.
Yeah. I mean, and you had what's the special effects artist that you had on the show? What's his name?
Pierre Olivier Person.
Yeah, that episode was so good. If you haven't, if you're now just listening to this episode, definitely go back and listen to Tim's episode where he interviews the guy that worked on the substance and made the monster, the Sue monster and everything.
I think it's
But
not on YouTube, but it'll be on Spotify and Apple
yeah,
Podcasts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, that was like the first time in a long time that I've seen uh practical effects in a way that I was just like, it felt like an elevated level to it. I mean, especially with all like the medical stuff and all of the like her back coming open. But again, the way they shot it, where everything is like so glossy and like slick and I don't know, it's just it's done in such a unique way that like it's you can't not look at it again. It's very much like a candy advertisement or like a a soda can, like whatever. It's just so pretty to look at,
Yeah,
but
and shout out Movie because it was either Sony or Warner Brothers, but they originally bought the film and then sold it back. They were like gave it back because
oh yeah,
they didn't want it, and Movie was like, "Fuck it, give it to us." And now look at
yeah,
it, fucking
yeah,
Academy Award winning, Oscar nominated. I think it won. Didn't Pierre Olivier Person win the Oscar for makeup effects? They just didn't
yeah,
win.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I was about to say I think they did win for makeup effects on the Oscars. I just don't think they won for anything else. But
yeah.
and I would say they were snubbed, but at the same time, Anora was great. I mean, there were so many good movies this year.
Oh,
So
there was a lot.
yeah,
And then they got yeah, that was the Oscar, but then they won other awards, right? Didn't what
Academy
was
Awards, and
Academy
then
Awards like
there.
best supporting actress or is that did Demi get
No,
best support?
no, Demi won the she's the lead in that
The
movie
lead. Okay,
technically.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. In all the nominations, Margaret Qualley was up for supporting, but
Supporting. Got it.
I don't think she won that. I think Cynthia Erivo won Academy Award, and then I don't know who
That's
won.
right.
Can't remember who won for the actual Oscars, but we watched the
Sure.
Academies and the Oscars, and the Academies were awesome because she won, and then the
Hmm.
Oscars they were okay, but I would have definitely loved Demi Moore win. The only cool thing about the Oscars this year, and I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but have you ever seen the Funny Games remake? Um,
Hmm.
like the English language remake, there's like the two brothers, that come up like show up and torture the people. The younger brother, the quieter one, I can't remember his name. The other one's Michael Pitt, but the other one, he directed The Brutalists. So
Oh,
the
really?
that kid that's like just a weirdo in fucking Funny Games went on to
Oh,
direct a movie that like won like Best Picture, was nominated for all the shit. So shout out to
wow.
him for that. Horror, people going from horror to the
Yeah.
mainstream shit is always cool. So
No, that's awesome. And I'm sure we'll get into a lot more of that kind of stuff on our next topic episode.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it was cool to see because there's so many times where I go see a movie and I'm especially like I feel like it's kind of a broken record to my wife Katie, but I'm just like, but this is different. Like this is, I'm always doing that. Especially like in like a lot of the more like A24 type films and whatever, but this was the one that I was just like, this movie is different than any other horror movie I've seen in so long. So I love that it's getting the recognition and the accolades and awards for it. So good job.
Oh yeah. Well, any other things you want to touch on before we wrap this up, or are you good to go?
um yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to like really get into. I mean, yeah, I think that really I think we explored bodies pretty well. Just to go over like a general talk points on this kind of stuff and especially because like the substance is so new. I didn't really want to like deep dive
Yeah.
because there's so much more opportunity to for people to see this movie with fresh eyes and not have it spoiled. So step outside your comfort zone, check out the substance. You might be surprised if you like it or not. But I think it's worth it. And then yeah, try to watch some body horror movies if you haven't really like deep dived on the subject matter. There's more than just like Cronenberg stuff that makes you feel weird, there's like we mentioned, there's a lot out there that you could check out and might be more suitable for you. So,
Yeah. No, hell yeah. Now, and of course, if you're listening, feel free to comment anywhere. You can leave comments on Spotify now as well as YouTube,
mhm.
and let us know what your favorite body horror movie or moments, or even if you just want to let us know what your favorite Cronenberg movie is or what you think of the
Mhm.
substance, feel free to let us know. So, appreciate you for joining me once again, Steven. I'll see you again in 2 weeks for horror movie snub by the Oscars. And of course, if
Yeah.
you're also listening, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a rating, depending whatever's clever for whatever platform you're on. But hell yeah,
Heck,
well, appreciate you for joining me, Steven, and enjoy the rest of your day, man.
heck yeah, you too, buddy. And yeah, try not to get sticky fingers and uh, goo on you. So,
I tell you, the last thing I'll ever do is just voluntarily pull my fingernails out. If they're
oh,
falling out, I'm going to a doctor. They're getting wrapped up. Gloving
no,
it.
thank you. Yeah. All right. Well, see ya, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
There you go.